everyone. Welcome to American Dreammaker Special Edition. This is Zena Krogadal, your host. I am extremely excited to bring on our next guest for this special edition because many of you know that I am involved and been very involved with an organization called the Veterans Association of Real Estate Professionals, also known as VAREP. And I'm part of the Prescott chapter. My next guest is G2 Varrato, and he has been a part of VAREP since pretty much the beginning, the birth of VAREP, pretty close. And he's been involved on many levels, but his big passion has been to be part of the legislative portion of it, because making the difference in our veterans' lives is really going and batting for them on the legislative level, so that the VA loan and all the needs that pertain to them are affected, as you know, in our government system from the legislative level. And so G2 is a top real estate agent along with his lovely wife, Lori. And in all of their busyness and time, they have done tremendous work in helping our veterans. And today I want to bring him on so that we can talk about the exciting things that are happening right now. We are getting ready to head to Washington, D.C., Capitol Hill, just in a few days. So without further ado, I do want to bring him on. But also, if you're watching this, go ahead and share this out. VAREP members, especially, and those who have been a supporter and all that, and those of you that are pro-veterans, share this out, because this message needs to get out, because we need your involvement. So we need to give you some information and give you all the exciting stuff. So without further ado, here we go. G2 Varrato, how are you?
Hey, Zena, it's great to be with you. Pardon me while I look away from my computer, from the screen. I want to get to a. There we go. Okay, so hey, folks. So I am G2 Varrato. I'm the National Legislative Director at VAREP. And been with VAREP since the beginning, back when God was putting dirt on the earth. And we have done tremendous things over the years, 13 going on 14 years now. And we've been chasing different kinds of legislation, different pieces of legislation to improve the veterans' experience in the home loan space, the home buying space, home selling space, education. Those of you who are veterans and who have ended your service, either retired after a number of years, you've gone through something called TAPS, which is it's the military's effort, the DoD's effort to try and help us reintegrate into society. It's a great effort. Hasn't been as successful as the DoD would like. Department of Defense would like it to be. So VAREP has been intimately involved in helping recraft that educational piece for our veterans. So beyond home ownership and the home space, VAREP is an educational opportunity for financial literacy for our veteran community. And I've just done a ton of work in that space. We also work with the VA in the space of helping veterans who've been displaced. They need a little help getting housing, whether it's rental housing using HUD-VASH or permanent housing. So just a lot of different aspects of what VAREP does. Lena?
Yeah, it's very multifaceted, G2, and I think it's fantastic, the vision that our founders had for VAREP, and how far they wanted to reach for our veteran clients, veteran persons, to really have an improved life, with sustainable home ownership, and, like you said, education, financial literacy, such a big, important element, because, like you said, they come out of TAPS, and it's kind of a quick whirlwind, from what I understand and hear from so many people, and so many don't understand that their home loan guarantee benefit is one of the big benefits that they actually are entitled to. So
Yeah, that's so true, and I'm sure you've experienced as a real estate agent this reality that many veterans, believe it or not, don't know don't know and don't believe that they have access to that the VA home loan benefit because they don't consider themselves veterans, air quotes, unless they've been shot at, which isn't true. If you've served a requisite number of months in the military on active duty or guard duty or reserve duty, you're eligible for that benefit and many other benefits. VA rep, our history goes way back. I mean, it is a decade plus old now, and our first adventure into making changes to the VA home buying, a home loan experience, was changing the loan application. For those of you who are lenders and realtors watching this episode, you probably remember that before 2023, if a veteran sat with his or her lender and was going through the loan application, there was never any overt opportunity for a veteran to be identified as a veteran buyer. And the problem that has caused over the number of years, the VA loan's been around since the 1940s, early mid 1940s, so 3/4 of a century, and it's been the forgotten benefit, quite honestly. And so when a veteran sat with a lender or even a realtor, they weren't given a full opportunity. The average usage of the VA home loan by the veteran community across the nation hovers between 10 and 15% of the veteran population. 10 to 15% of us use our VA home loan benefit across the country, and a lot of that's because it wasn't promoted properly by our respective industries, lending industry and the real estate industry. So in 2015, VA Rep began a mission to get the loan application, the Universal Residential Loan Application, modified, changed, improved, to add onto the loan application a little checkbox that says, "Have you ever served?" And so March of 2023, that actually became part of the loan process. So now every applicant who sits with a lender is queried on the loan application, "Did you ever serve?" If you check that box, and the conversation begins about, "Hey, here are all the benefits that you've that are available to you," and that has begun to really improve the number of home loans that are actually closed each year in the world of real estate. Beyond that, VA Rep did that. In 2018, there was a bill that was making its way through Congress. It was 40 years in the making. It was a bill to allow Navy veterans who had served during the Vietnam War to receive medical care for medical conditions, degenerations that were caused by Agent Orange, a chemical that was used during the Vietnam War. But over the 40-year period, the VA would not allow that medical care to be offered because the Navy veterans, many of them, did not go ashore. They were on ship. And even though they contracted Agent Orange diseases, because they didn't go on shore, the VA alleged that they weren't ill from that. Well, a lot of science and things fast forward 40 years later, finally the VA agreed that these sailors who didn't go on shore were in fact infected by Agent Orange because the chemical came out of the Mekong Delta into the ocean where the water was being desalinized on the ships, and the story is these sailors got sick. But anyway, so the bill was the Blue Water Navy bill, and it was intended to help get that medical care to those veterans. The problem with the bill was that the government, Congress, decided they needed to fund that bill by cannibalizing parts of the VA home loan. VAREP got hold of that original bill. It was HR 299. And when we saw that bill, we noticed glaring issues. And had VAREP not stepped in to fix that problem, the bill would have eviscerated the VA home loan. We literally stopped that bill from being passed in its first iteration. Me and my team flew to DC, met with members of Congress, got them to understand that they had made some errors. And we actually had to, VAREP literally rewrote part of that bill to save what is called the VA home loan additional benefit portion of VA home loan. Had we not stepped in, that would have gone away. So VAREP fixed that. We also got rid of something called churning, predatory lending. Lenders were allowed to offer you a VA home loan. You close on your loan, and many of you who have VA loans know that as soon as you closed on your loan, you got little flyers in the mail that said, "Hey, contact me, and we'll go ahead and reduce your loan payment by $50 or $100." And you jump on that ship, and they'd go ahead and do that. The problem was they rolled the closing costs of that new loan that you just got a few months ago into your mortgage. Now the home you bought was more expensive by the cost, whatever the closing costs they added in. Sometimes several $1,000s, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. And then as soon as you close on that loan, you got more flyers that said, "Let's do that again." And that went on and on and on. We sent dozens of letters to Congress showing them that people that had bought all over the country, maybe a $400,000 house, 18 months later owed $415,000, $50,000 on it because that loan had been churned. VAREP worked with Senator Tillis and Senator Warren to get a bill passed that made it illegal for lenders to churn loans. Now that can no longer take place. So we've done a lot of work. Over the years. We've been working really, really hard to become a chartered VSO. A chartered VSO, there's only 94 of them in the nation. There's over 100,000 VSOs, 94 are chartered. And actually the 95th one just got chartered last Congress. It's the National American Indian Veterans Association. That was the last charter that got, or last VSO that got chartered. We are on course right now to become the 96th chartered VSO. We've been working on that for many, many years, something that Zena's been very, very heavily involved in since she's been part of VSO, part of VAREP. And we're excited about that piece of legislation. And then finally, and then I'm going to jump over to something about NAR. Zena, I hope I'm not flapping my jaw too much for you.
You're good.
Okay. And then also one of the great changes that it's an augmentation to the improvement we made to the URLA, the Universal Residential Loan Application, where we added that question, "Have you ever served?" But there's a piece that's missing in the total disclosure. Those of you that are realtors and lenders know that when a borrower signs up to get going with his home loan, his or her home loan, they get a pile of documents from the lender within 3 days of completing the application. And in that pile of documents is something called a disclosure that says to the borrower the differences in the cost of a loan between an FHA loan and a conventional loan, but there is no difference comparator in the to the VA home loan. So the piece of legislation we've got in Congress right now, we call it the Valid Act, will change that. It will add a third column so that when the borrower gets his or her loan application package, this 30 to 50 to 70 page document set that the government made because they said that was going to make it easier for home loan borrowers, which I don't think it did, but that's a story for another day. But anyway, and when that law passes, when that bill passes and gets signed into law, there will be three columns: the difference between an FHA loan, a conventional loan, and a VA loan. The borrower, the VA borrower, is going to be able to see literally that the VA home loan is the best opportunity, lending opportunity that he or she needs to take advantage of. And jumping off of that and onto something that has been in the works for many, many months, the lawsuit between the National Association of Realtors and a group of young hotshot attorneys on the Midwest that turned the world of real estate upside down. And that settlement, that lawsuit actually got settled last year, and the nuts and bolts of it came to crystallize just a few months ago. And one of the things that has come out of that lawsuit is that borrowers, and this is for all borrowers, all buyers, and sellers across the spectrum, across the United States. In the MLS today, this will finally get finalized, my understanding is by August of this year. But today, and for decades earlier, when a real estate agent put a home on the market for a seller, the seller agreed to pay the real estate brokerage a certain amount of money called a broker fee. And that money was agreed through the MLS system to be parsed between the buying agent and the buying broker and selling broker. And it's been that way forever. Well, that's no longer going to be the case. Come August, this is already settled in court. They're just working out the fine tuning of it. But what's going to happen, the National Association of Realtors has agreed that every listing in the MLS will no longer advertise compensation for the buyer or the seller. There will be compensation, but it'll be negotiated between the listing agent and the seller, not disclosed to the public, unfortunately, unless the buyer agent asks the listing agent, hey, are you offering a broker fee to a buyer agent? And the seller may or may not have agreed to that. You won't know until you actually get in the boat and start rowing. Well, on the buyer side, here's the other kicker. The buyer side, the buyers and real estate agents representing buyers will no longer, as of August, be allowed to work together unless the buyer and the buyer agent execute a buyer broker written agreement, much like a listing agreement on the selling side. And within that buyer broker agreement, an agreement that the buyer will compensate the buyer agent an amount of money for that representation. It's going to get pretty convoluted, and we're still working our way through how the hell we're all going to get through this. I've been doing this for 30 years, been through many, many changes. This is probably the biggest earthquake that we've experienced in the last 100 years.
Yeah, and G2, this is it. This is big because, I mean, it's an interesting lawsuit that they settled on, but I don't think they really obviously thought it through, because this not only impacts the sellers if they choose to not offer a buyer compensation, because it's going to actually shoot them in the foot. They're not saving any money. They're actually going to really harm themselves in selling. But G2, the big question is, how is this going to affect the veteran buyer? Because this is where I get hot under the collar when I sit and think about this. So tell us, G2, how is this going to affect the veteran buyer?
So great question. And up until yesterday at 7 o'clock in the morning, the veteran was in a bad position. The actual statute, 38 CFR 36. Excuse me, I have an important guest here. Oh, this is Powder.
Hi, Powder.
And he needed to be picked up. Sorry. He's an old fart. He's 19 years old. That's like, I think, 100 years old in people years. So he gets to be paid attention to when he wants it. But anyway, so sorry, I digress. But up until yesterday, that statute, CFR 38, 364313, did not allow veterans to participate in any way, to be charged or offered to pay broker fees of any kind. Yesterday morning, the VA issued a temporary moratorium on that statute. And now this, it's called the circular, a VA circular, is out and it will become active on August 10th, which is supposed to be the date that the NAR settlement actually is codified by the judges. And so that opens the door now for veterans to agree to participate in the broker fee for to pay the buyer agent. Here's my rub with that, and here's VA's rub with that. A veteran buyer, most of them, fall into what we call the LMI category, low to moderate income. They are typically not cash rich. They have enough money for their closing costs in some cases, in most cases, but they have needed to save and work to save up the amount of money it takes to close the transaction. Now, with the way this whole grand scheme of things is going to work out, the veteran is going to be on the hunt for some additional money. He's buying a $500,000 house, and maybe the broker agreement he's agreed to sign says that he agrees to pay 1 or 2 or 3% of whatever he or she is buying. We see that as still unhelpful to the veteran. It allows them the opportunity to stay in the game and negotiate the fee. But my guess is that as Zena or my wife list a property with a seller and have this conversation with the seller about if you want to offer a broker fee to the buyer agent, that will probably benefit you, Mr. or Miss Seller, because the buyers are going to be looking for sellers who are willing to continue business as it's been, and so you want to offer that amount of compensation. And while that conversation took place on the selling side, then I, as a buyer agent, would call Zena and say, "Listen, are you offering a buyer broker fee?" And she would say, "Yeah, we're paying a broker fee." My buyer, my VA buyer, my any buyer is going to say, but we're talking about vets, is going to say, "Let's go see Zena's house because Susie's house next door doesn't want to pay a commission, doesn't want to pay a broker fee. So I, the buyer, don't want to go see Susie." That's what I see coming down the pike. This is brand new. I mean, this is like hot off the press stuff. VA rep is on the Hill this week talking to Congress about ways to work through this problem. One of the things that VA rep is contemplating is having a discussion with the VA and with HUD to build a forgivable contribution from funds that are already warehoused in the home loan, home buying, home ownership space, home buying space, already in Congress. It's not like we're coming up with a plan that costs Congress more money or taxpayers more money. We think there's a way to actually develop a scenario where veterans will be able to secure the additional funds needed to support the broker fee on the buyer side, should they be not able to find a seller of the house they want to purchase who's willing to participate to that degree. And then our mission, our thinking is that we get those funds advanced to the veteran as a forgivable loan after so many months. We've seen these kinds of scenarios before in home loan programs where the buyer is advanced a certain amount of money. He or she agrees to live in that house for 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 years, and the money's forgiven. We're looking at something similar to that. But that's downstream. The first step is getting over this big hurdle. Come August 10th, which is supposedly the drop date of all these new rules, that's going to go into play, and we're all still feeling our way through this. VAREP has had many conversations with the VA, with the Veterans Committee, both the Senate and the House, many members of Congress. Everybody on Capitol Hill is running around with their hair is on fire, and probably is, because this has thrown a real monkey wrench into the world of buying and selling. And even though we're talking about veterans, truth be told, this affects all buyers, particularly those in the low to moderate income space. It's highly improbable that an FHA buyer, a USDA buyer, or a bond buyer has a pocket full of money to pay for both broker fees, closing costs, down payments. After doing this for 30 years, I just don't, this is me pontificating, I just don't see that as reality. I think there's going to have to be a workaround that gets developed. And quite honestly, I think the workaround is going to be that the sellers are going to understand the way it's been for decades has worked pretty darn good. The lawsuit that was launched alleged that sellers were taken advantage of because they were never told that they were paying the buyer broker side. That's not true. It's poppycock. But the lawyers were successful in making the jury believe that that's the way things went, and the jury went in that direction. And that's our system of law, and you got to agree to disagree. That's the way it went down. And so now we're going to deal with how that all shakes out. Zena?
Yeah, it's it's quite a process, G2, for sure. And there's a lot of moving parts, as you have mentioned. There's a lot of arms moving around. And so this is why us going to Capitol Hill this next week, where we are meeting with congressional aides and really talking about the 2 bills that are on the floor. And these bills are also in the NDAA amendments right now, which is great. So there's 2 ways we can get these items through: the Valid Act that you were speaking of, and also the VSO bill. And listeners, viewers, I want you to really, really grasp this. These bills are very important to pass because VAREP is the only VSO that advocates for the veterans on the VA home loan guarantee. Out of the 95 chartered, none of them do. And even out of the hundreds of thousands of non-chartered VSOs, do not advocate for the veterans on the VA home loan. So this is huge for our veterans to benefit. And you just heard G2 talk about the history since he's been a part of VAREP, how much VAREP has done on the legislative levels. I mean, we have been able to make changes and help the VA loan become a better loan, because let's face it, decades ago, it was not considered a great loan for the veterans, and there were things that needed fixing. And VAREP has taken the bull by the horns, and G2 was one of the originals that really, was very passionate about it, along with the team, and has gone up there year after year after year. Imagine the reach and the ability that we would be able to have as a recognized chartered VSO. And I want to pop these two bills up if I can on the screen, just so you can see, because we want you to absolutely contact your representatives and your senators, to basically make this happen. So let me see if I can find it here, G2. I had it just a minute ago, and you know how this goes.
While Zena's pulling these up, what we'd like you to do is call your congressman, call your senator, and ask them to sign on as co-sponsors of these bills. One is the VALID Act, and one is the VSO bill, which is the bill that makes VAREP a chartered VSO. This bill that you see on screen right now is the House version. It's HR 3240. This one is the bill that actually makes VAREP a congressionally chartered or federally chartered veteran service organization. We would be the 95th out of over 100,000 VSOs. And you can see Representative Lee and Steele, Lee from Nevada, Steele from California, and Trone have introduced this bill. But here's a really cool thing about this bill and the VALID Act. Both of them have been added as amendments to the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA. Zena mentioned that. That's really, really important, because typically a bill would be put on the floor, voted on, debated on, and then voted on, either pass or not. We've been successful. Lynn Jabs, my co-chair and co-lead on most of this work, has been successful in getting these two bills added into the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, as amendments. And the NDAA gets passed every year. It's a general omnibus military bill. And when something is in the NDAA, and if it makes it through the NDAA and that bill gets passed into law, these supplemental bills become law. And so as you write your congressman or senator, tell them you want them to support the amendments that are in the NDAA for the VALID Act and the NDAA. And Zena, if this goes out, so that y'all know, the bills you're chasing are HR 4335 and HR 3240. Those are the House versions of the VALID Act and the VSO bill. On the Senate side, the companion, the sister bills to those, are S 2496 and S 2964, again, respectively, the VALID Act and the VSO bill. Those are the bills that you want your congressmen and senators to sign on to as co-sponsors. They've been endorsed by the National Association of Realtors. They've been endorsed by the last, that I got cat fur on my nose now. They've been endorsed by the National Native American Indian Veterans Association. They've been endorsed by, I mentioned the National Association of Realtors. We've also got, this is the Native American Indian Veterans Association, National American Indian Veterans Association. They were just chartered congressionally last year in 2023, December of 2023, and they've endorsed our efforts to become a chartered VSO. So the National American Indian Veterans Association, you can find them on Facebook under that same title. But the point is, reach out to your members of Congress, reach out to your local associations. If you're real estate agents, you have local boards. If you're lenders, you've got the Mortgage Bankers Association, the Association of Mortgage Brokers, any professional organization that you are a part of. Bring them into the fold and have them get behind these bills. The NDAA, I believe, was voted on and passed in the House yesterday, and the Senate will be up next in the next few weeks. And then it'll go back to the House, and hopefully we'll get it passed into law by late December. But all of this effort that we've talked about today is to bring to you an awareness that VAREP needs your help to continue to advocate and produce good advocacy opportunities for the veteran community. You know, less than 4% of us have ever worn a uniform or wear the uniform. And all of us, when we took the oath, we agreed to take a bullet for this country. So, speaking as a veteran, I am always shameless in saying we need your support. We need your help. And we're asking you to acknowledge what we offered without being asked. And so we now turn back around and ask you to help us become homeowners, better stewards of our financial world through financial literacy, get the homeless veterans off the street into appropriate housing, and just continue on the path that the country owes the veteran community. Maybe that's a little strong, but that's my belief. Zena?
No, I agree. I absolutely agree. You as veterans, absolutely bought our freedom, and it came at a cost. And some paid the price in full, and they're not here with us anymore. And all of you have paid the price and are probably making what you call incremental payments of that debt of freedom. And you are right, G2, that we do owe our veterans so much because of the sacrifices. And it doesn't matter if a veteran has been in combat or not. The sacrifices that come along in serving the country, our country, for freedom is huge. And until you are in it or know somebody who's in it, you don't realize what kind of sacrifice that really is. And it's huge. And so every veteran deserves to be a homeowner. That is part of the American dream. That is absolutely, they deserve it just like anybody else, because they're fighting for our freedom so that we can have the American dream. So every veteran deserves the American dream. They deserve having the access to learn about, like you said, financial responsibility and being able to sustain, in the rest of their life after they come home, after they are no longer serving technically our country. Although most veterans are serving in some sort of capacity, I have to say that that is why I really just love working with veterans, because there is a real moral and ethical standpoint that every veteran seems to have, and that is service and duty like no other. And G2 is, as you can see, is no exception. That even after he was done serving the military, he started serving his community. Him and his wife are absolutely powerhouses for the community. And I'm going to put another shameless plug for G2. If you are shopping for a home in the Valley, in the Phoenix area, G2 and Lori Varrato are your go-to realtors. They are top agents and they will take care of the veterans. I'm allowed to do that because this is my show called American Dream Makers. So they will help you to absolutely get the American dream in your hands. And so as we go to Capitol Hill next week, I mean, we've got several points here. I mean, there's so many things that are happening in behind the scenes that we honestly can't talk about them all today because it would just take all day. But we really need your support. We need your support not only for you to contact the representatives and senators of your area. So if you're watching this from another state, this affects all 50 states of the United States. This is not just Arizona. This is not just California. This is all of it. So wherever you're watching, if you are living in your state, you contact your representatives and your senators and you let them know that you want them to support these two bills because it's going to change and impact our veterans' lives. So that's one way you can support. The other way you can support is also by your donations, because it also takes money to send us out to advocate and to do all these. We are volunteers. Every single one of volunteers, but there's still a cost to flying out to DC, to all of those things to make it happen. And so, but none of us, we're not getting paid to do this. We are literally doing this on our time, and we need your support financially. So varep.net, and you can give your support that way. And I'm going to put an email up here to just this is the Prescott chapter, prescottvarep@gmail.com. If you need more information, I can certainly get you to the right persons for information if I don't have it. And let's get everybody involved because this is huge. G2, this is huge. This is history in the making. You've helped to make history many times. One of the other things that I think a lot of people don't realize either is that the veterans right now, not only the funding fee is waived if you are a Purple Heart recipient or you have a disability, but also the cap of the VA loan has been basically there is no cap. Do you want to touch on that just a little bit?
Sure. When the Blue Water Navy bill was being rewritten by VAREP, the section that funded the medical care, one of the things that we advocated for in that was, and for you that are lenders and realtors, you probably know if you've worked with veterans that veterans who have a disability of any kind have their funding fee waived. Well, before we started reworking the bill, that was being removed. And it was going to be removed to where unless you were 100% disabled, you weren't going to be able to have your funding fee waived. We blew a gasket over that because, quite honestly, somebody that's lost a limb is not rated at 100% disability, believe it or not. So anyway, we got that fixed, but we wanted to step it up a little bit more. And there are many service members who continue to serve on active duty with injuries, and they've are recipients of the Purple Heart. Well, in the bill, when we got it passed and we got it rewritten, we advocated for one little higher notch to where if you're a Purple Heart recipient and still on active duty, you too have your funding fee waived. So that was a huge get for us as we went through redrafting the concepts called the pay for, how you're going to pay for something. When we got done doing this, we got that change. And then I think the coup de grace in the entire change was what Zena was leaning towards. For many years, there was a ceiling on how much the VA would guarantee on a home loan. And they usually set that guarantee limit at whatever the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac conventional loan limits were. It was 300 or 400 or whatever that 100,000 was. And the VA would only guarantee that loan up to that, the VA loan up to that amount of money. And then if a VA buyer wanted to buy a home that eclipsed that guarantee, the VA buyer had to come to the table with cash out of pocket as a 25% down payment on whatever that amount of money was. Maybe the ceiling at the time might have been $500,000, but the buyer wanted to buy a $600,000 house. The VA buyer, he could buy a $600,000 house, and he could finance the $600,000, but he'd have to, because the ceiling guarantee was only $500,000, he'd have to come to the table with 25% of that $100,000 more figure. So he had to come to the table with another 25 grand. When Blue Water got passed, that ceiling went away. Now, a buyer, a VA buyer, a qualified buyer who wants to buy a house, he or she can buy a 600, 1,000, 100,000, a million, a $10 million house with no ceiling on it, no guarantee ceiling. The VA will guarantee that loan. I think the highest purchased VA loan right now is in Malibu, California, for like $9 million.
Wow.
Yeah. Here's a point for some of you who are lenders and or realtors. You might have run into scenarios where you've heard, well, the VA has a cap on how much money they'll go to. No, the VA does not have a cap. Lenders have a cap. Lenders have overlays. Lenders will say, well, even though the VA will go to $9 million, I'm only going to do loans up to $1 million on a VA guarantee. If you run across a lender like that, find another lender, because the VA has no ceiling. Lenders put their own overrides on these. Just shameless plug for the VA.
Yeah. No, and that's good. That's good to know, G2, because many people don't realize that, because they feel like if one lender says no or we can't do it, they just think, oh, then that's straight across the board. And you're right. Lenders have their own overlays. VA themselves do not have a cap. And so you find a lender that will loan on that, because there are some out there. And again, get a hold of G2 or myself or one of the board members at, on the chapters. They can get you those resources, because that's what VAREP is about. We are here to serve our veterans as a resource so that you can be a homeowner. And well, G2, I just want to give you my personal thanks. Really appreciate you so much on so many levels. I appreciate you. And you truly are my personal hero, because I would not be here today interviewing you had you not gone and served and done all that. So I just love and adore you and Lori so much. Thank you so much for your continued service to our country and our community and our veteran and active military. This is exciting things going on. And so, yeah, let's get this done.
Well, and as we sign off, I want to say to everybody who's watching this and anybody that is new to the show, Zena is one of the most proficient, knowledgeable, intelligent realtors that I've run across in 30 plus years. She's up in the Prescott area. If you're looking for a home up in Prescott, in the Prescott Valley, reach out to Zena. Her and her husband, they're top of their game. They certainly are veteran specialists, but they cover the whole gamut. So don't be bashful if you're buying a house and you're not a veteran. Zena's your lady up in the Prescott area.
Well, thank you for that, G2. Your endorsement means a lot, so I appreciate that so very much. Yeah, we just love making the American dream happen. That's why we do what we do, right, G2? We just love to see people really being able to be homeowners, because there's nothing like it. And so, yes, blessings to you, and we will see you on Capitol Hill. And I can't wait to report back afterwards. So you guys make those phone calls and help us to get this thing pushed through. So, all right.
Absolutely. Thanks,
Have
everybody.
a good one.
See ya.
Thank you so much, you guys, for watching this. And if you are watching the replay, please share it out. Seriously, we got to get this pushed through and advocate for our veterans so that they can absolutely utilize their VA loan and do so many things. We're fighting homelessness in a different way. We're trying to get each veteran to sustainable housing and to being able to just live the American dream. So I'm Zena Krogadal. This is your American Dream Makers. Until next time, go out there and live out that American dream and help others to achieve it as well. So goodbye for now.